Hey, yo, you already know what today is, dog. It's Killer Tuesday. On a Wednesday. Huh. What's going on with y'all, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that's your day. Phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. For today's tier list, just like you guys, I know you're probably excited for Wild Survivors. My guys, Dinos, Le Burger, and surprisingly, a fighting Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I don't think I've seen this before, and I'm not good at fighting games, but I'm excited. In today's tier list, not only will I be rating those strategies from Wild Survivors, I'll also even be talking about the potential of the strategies that you can play right now, as well as their future viability to give you a look on these strategies and the outlook you should probably think about when picking up or playing these decks. So with that being said, I got 5 different categories, big dog, with best available or the best available Yu-Gi-Oh strategies. These are not only really good strategies in the meta right now, they also could be really good in the future. Can compete, my guys. These strategies are really, really good. Bad potential means do not sleep on these Yu-Gi-Oh strategies, big dog. The correct pilot or the correct future support can make this deck insane. Experimental by no means is a bad Yu-Gi-Oh deck. These particular strategies may need a little bit more labbing to make better, or we just haven't figured out the correct way to play it. And lastly, big dog, if you like playing life on hard mode, a real challenge. Some of y'all picked this difficulty on purpose by not taking a shower, which results into you not getting a girlfriend. But let's jump on in. Okay, so the criteria for this tier list is going to be a little bit different. The first part of this criteria is going to be based on statistics for what has been happening over the course of the format. But the second part of this criteria is the potential, big dog. I want to be able to give you a little bit of insight on these particular strategies and if they have already peaked, if they could potentially be hit on the forbidden list, and if they can be stronger going forward. And the last part of the criteria is how well the strategy can respond to Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Is this deck actually good? Can it be powerful? Let's find out. Let's go ahead and start off with Branded, which is a terribly powerful deck. It has actually been doing really well over the course of the format. One of the biggest draws for Branded is the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare Lock. This deck can special summon this monster to your side of the field, and it can't be negated. You're not special summoning, I guess, unless you're playing Gimmick Puppet. Bro, the Gimmick Puppet players just drooling right now. They're like, yes, give me the nightmare. For everybody else, they're coping. I think Branded is a very powerful deck that can compete in the meta, but 100% it has peaked. This is the strongest Branded can get because we know we are not getting any more Albaz support anytime soon, so take that with a grain of salt. Also, keep in mind, there's a high probability that Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, one of the deck's strongest features, will be hit on the forbidden list, which would take this power down a little bit. Dark World, my boys, last format, this deck was cooking! But the problem with Dark World right now is that most players are using a card called Drolling Lockbird, which essentially ends your turn. Yep. That's about right. I would say Dark World is 100% experimental, and that's because I think that there is another version of Dark World that could be competitive. Skill Drain is one of the most dangerous cards in the game. If you get Drolling Lockbird, just summon Grapha and activate Skill Drain, forehead. Maybe Dark World should move away from a hand loop approach and maybe towards a controlled approach, and that may actually boost the power of Dark World. Overall, I don't think that there's much that should be addressed on the forbidden list other than the hand loop, but overall, it's not going to be a powerful deck as long as Droll is in the format and you're trying to handle it. The first strategy from Wild Survivors that I want to talk about is Transcend Drakes. This makes Dinos even more explosive. The problem with that is that while Dino does become more powerful, it doesn't become more resistant, and its chunk points still remain the same. My guy, basically what I'm saying is free Misk. He ain't do nothing to nobody. That card, he ain't do nothing to nobody. Transcend Drake Dino has mad potential. There are 2 cards in Wild Survivor that I'm really keeping my eye on. The first one is True King Lethosagam, which just got reprinted. That could potentially come off the forbidden list. Konami didn't have to reprint that card. It did come as a rare in Toon Chaos, but seeing that it got another rare reprint, we might be gearing up for this card to come out, which makes Dinos more powerful. Then there's also Miscellaneous Saris. If that card comes off, Dino becomes a lot more resilient to hand interruption. This deck could be really, really good. Now, some players might be asking, where's Dragon Link, Gally? Where's Dragon Link? this is the representative of Dragon. The reason why I say that is because I gave you a deck profile of Dragon Link, and to be honest, it's really just bestial. I personally think that this deck has a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh potential. The best thing is that while the Dragon deck can take full advantage of the bestials, being able to use them as big bodies and even search cards in grand combos, if the deck ever moves more towards a light and dark format, those bestial monsters not only become really good assets for the deck, they also become interruptions against some of the top decks. There's a few things that I like about Drytron. The first one is Black Magician at Chaos Max. That card is godly. One thing that I don't like is that Droll and Logbird is in the format. This is a deck that cannot play Psy-Frame Gear Gamma, because if you Gamma on your turn after searching, you can't summon your Drytron monsters. I did play against somebody in the top tables, and he seemed to have known what he's doing. It is a Ritual deck. I would say it has mad potential. The reason why is because Ritual decks are already getting new support inside of the Wild Survivor set. Nouvelle might not be the best thing for Drytron, but as long as we continue to get Rituals, this deck will probably remain at least a decent contender. You guys are actually going to be like crazed out where I put Eldritch. This deck actually has a national top and has been topping consistently. This is 100% a deck that can compete. Holy! Eldritch is actually a way better deck than what you're going to give it credit. It plays a ton of floodgates. We've already talked about how powerful Skill Drain is in this format. Imagine combining it with cards like Goes and Match, Rival of the Warlords, and there can be only one. Eldritch also scouts all of the hand traps in the format. This deck is fairly formidable, and if Mommy Milkers is Mommy Milkers, does that make Eldritch Daddy Dilf? Now, another reason why I think that this is going to be a really good tier list is because it allows me to talk about some strategies that I were really high on and gives you an update on what I currently think. Exosister is experimental. My guy, getting hand trapped by any of the best hand traps, which by the way would be Ogre, Droll, and Gamma, completely sucks. Your boy does like Dimension Shifter in this deck, but unfortunately there are more powerful decks that can use Dimension Shifter. Fluendereese not only has Dimension Shifter, which shuts off all of the graveyard reliant decks, there's actually quite a few in the format. It also has the new Time Tearing Morganite card, which allows you to get an additional normal summon in 2 draws per turn. You know what Fluendereese does with more normal summons. For the people that are wondering, hey, you can't activate both in the entire game. Just activate one. I promise you, one or the other is gonna be clapping somebody up. But more importantly, you should already know Fluendereese Search is one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh trap cards that ever existed in the card game, and Harpy's Featherstorm 100% is a deck that can compete. Hey yo, my guys, all I'm saying is that them toxic Yu-Gi-Oh decks, they making a run right now. Gold Pride Punk is a way better deck that a lot of players give it credit. I mean, we're not too removed from having War Rocks as an archetype exclusive. In comparison, Gold Pride is a god tier deck. Hey War Rock players, I'm not trying to slight you, but it is what it is, right? Unfortunately for Gold Pride Punk, it hasn't caught on to how a lot of players would have liked, though I do think that this deck does have mad potential. The reason why is because Gold Pride still has the potential for a third wave of support, just like how B-Troopers and War Rocks have once received. And if Konami TCG actually decides to listen and gives us support that actually makes the archetype better, we're in! Dog, who am I kidding? This is just gonna be a world challenge. It's Konami listening. That's the challenge. Oh, but in all seriousness, it seems that they are really trying to push this deck to be a lot better than some of our other archetype exclusives. Hungry Hamburger.
Oh, beating me.
Hungry Hamburger finally gets an entire archetype. Nouvelle is the supporting cast, allowing you to be able to tribute your opponent's monsters and summon other Nouvelle monsters to your side of the field. Konami really dug into their bag to try to make Hungry Hamburger a great card. Good job. The problem with Nouvelle, from my perspective, is that tributing your opponent's monsters is a great thing if you're tributing for costs. My guy, basically we already have a deck that does that, but better. Now, of course, this is just the very beginning of Wild Survivors. You guys have seen how Amazing Defenders came out. Those archetypes were mid, and now they're getting some insane support. Hungry Hamburger can actually do the same, and it's a ritual deck, so it's bound to get more indirect support no matter what. Kashtira is hands down the best deck available in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, and I'm salty. It's mainly because hero players got exactly what they want. An extra deck monster that banishes everything and is freakishly annoying. It's just not Masked Hero Darklaw. Hey, even Chaz players got the Ojama lock in the same deck. Hey, yo, it's a GX deck. Kashtira is so good because it does have 2 modes of operation, a Rise Heart Pass or 9 Zone Lock You, though I do think that it's at its peak mainly because cards could be hit on the Kashtira strategy that would make it a little bit weaker, though I still think it'll be a top contender and won't be hit like tier limit. Labyrinth Mommy Milkers! You would be surprised where I put this on the tier list. Reason why is because when we initially made the tier list, I said that Labyrinth wasn't good. But after winning and topping some national events, holy! Yo, you remember when I said Eldritch is Daddy Dilf? Well, Labyrinth is Mommy Milks. What's been so crazy about Labyrinth is that they've actually adapted and became stronger, using the furniture cards to be able to set up in case you're going second, and also the new card Wannabe from Cyberstorm Access. Those two cards really help the strategy. It also helps since players are playing evenly matched a lot less. This deck can actually play Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I have seen a more pure Nouvelle archetype, but I've also seen a Libromancer version of the Nouvelle archetype, which actually begs to differ. Which one is better? Well, in essence, I would say that they're both 100% experimental. As of current right now, all of the ritual decks hard lose to Droll and Lockbird. And while Hamburger and Libromancer could play Psyframe Gear Gamma, this is also a strategy that requires a ton of thought, a ton of combo resources, when you can just play another combo deck. I think the biggest problem with Mannadium is getting your Riemhart disrupted, whether they banish the monster on the field that Riemhart is trying to destroy to summon, or if they just outright negate the card. That is a huge problem for the Mannadium strategy. But overall, why the deck is underperforming right now, it actually gets huge boost of support, so it may be experimental, but in the future, it will be a lot better. Marine Cess oftentimes gets compared to Mathmech. And the reason why is because they're both cyber strategies, except Marine Cess can't play Access Code Talker. I mean, it can, it just isn't optimal. I think one of the biggest points to differentiate the two is our kaijus in the format, and also how powerful is World Sea Dragon Zealantis. If World Sea Dragon Zealantis is extremely good in the format, Marine Cess is cooking. If World Sea Dragon Zealantis struggles, well, right now, Marine Cess is 100% experimental. I've heard players trying to use the new Ice Jade Con monster to make synchro summons, and that would be insane if the water monster you synchro summon to stopped you from being hand trapped. Speaking of such, Mathmech is easily one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's so resilient to hand traps. I mean, Droll and Lockbird could hurt, but normally when you want to draw, they ain't got no monsters on the field, so watch out for that Gamma. What makes Mathmech so insane right now is its one card capabilities, its ton of hand traps. It actually reminds me of another deck that is one of the best available. As for potential, my guy, it's a Cyburst deck. It seems like the more Cyburst support comes out, it's gonna get better. Though I would watch out for Mathmech Circular potentially hitting the Forbidden list. Naturia is just like in a really interesting spot. The reason why I would say it has mad potential is because against decks like Labyrinth or Pearly, summoning a Naturia Beast, oh my god, clapping them up. Summoning a Naturia Barkion is, oh my god, you're winning. But then there's your boy Droll and Lockbird and players playing Cosmic Cyclone to get rid of your Runic Fountain. That's Runic in the game right now. Naturia actually does have a decent amount of potential to be able to do some damage inside of the format, and I think that this deck is more player dependent than it is power dependent. Now, my guys, if the milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, then the cats really got far, because they're purling in the yard to make the boys play them hard. Pearly got 2 new cards from Cyberstorm Access and went from a deck that nobody talked about to one of the best strategies in the game. It's really crazy how a couple of cards in a meta shift can completely change how your deck is being viewed right now. I think that Pearly just may overtake Kashtira as the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Eventually. This deck has also only had 1 wave of support, where its counterparts in Rescue Ace and Makanko have had multiple waves of support. The only knock on Pearly is that it is a deck that requires big brain to be able to play. You gotta know exactly what you're doing because you're minusing every time you resolve a Pearly spell card effect. I don't care what you say, and I don't care if you think I'm coping, because Rika is 100% a deck that can compete. My guy, it tributes monsters for cost. That is like the friggest Kashtira matchup ever. Rika can ironically bypass a lot of the decks in the format's most powerful cards by having built-in kaijus that players must respect. And while I may stand corrected on the deck being a little bit weaker than Droll than what I initially thought, it's still a very powerful deck where Droll doesn't trade as well against some of these other strategies that I've talked about. Now, when I was going over this tier list with my Twitch chat, they urged me to talk about Sky Striker, and I originally put it in experimental. Right now, I'm actually gonna put it in a real challenge, but there's actually so much potential for this deck. My guy, Sky Striker Mobilize Engage is at 2 in the OCG and Master Duel. If it comes to 2, this might be the goo. I say this is because Sky Striker is similar to both Labyrinth and Eldritch, but can actually finish off opponents faster. We also know that Sky Striker is going to continuously get support, kind of like how Shaddolls is continuously get support. Konami really likes this strategy. Sprites, my guys, are actually a strategy that 100% can compete. The new card that it got for itself in Cyberstorm Access has actually proven its worth. There's been quite a few decks that have been topping using it. Overall, the Sprite strategy makes most hand traps look ridiculously silly, something that a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh players are using right now and can set up some really awesome boards. As for potential, well, I would say that it capped out, but I don't see Konami stop making level, rank, or link 2 monsters ever. Super Heavy Samurai, my guys, the big boys, who ironically aren't necessarily that big. Seriously, big dog, Super Heavy Samurai sounds like these cards should be over 300,000-400,000 pounds. These cards maybe look, I don't know, if you look at the weight, maybe 250 max. Also, what time era is this deck in? You got a crossbow, a wagon, and a bike. What are we doing here? We're hustling backwards. The 1-card combos of this deck easily make it one of the best decks available. Hands down, this strategy has completely changed Yu-Gi-Oh! And forced players to play multiple hand traps, because if you don't, holy, yo, you better have a backup plan, because this deck is comboing. Summoning a huge board to the side of the field with just 1 card and then backing itself up with multiple hand traps is gonna be rough. Sword Soul, my boys, you already know where I put this deck. It's me coping right now. Bro, I promise you, Sword Soul is a baller Yu-Gi-Oh deck. This deck's too strong. Yeah, that's 100% me coping. It's definitely a deck with mad potential though. It seems with no more direct Sword Soul support in the imminent future, this is a strategy that is capped out, but I do say that it does have more potential because new synchro monsters may arrive. Cards like Chaos Angel has definitely lifted the ceiling of the deck, making it a little bit more potent. If I were to put Trap Tricks somewhere, I would say that Trap Tricks are a real challenge right now. I don't think that the deck is bad, but the problem with Trap Tricks is that it cannot go second for the life of it. Trap Tricks are at a weird spot where evenly matched can be powerful, but isn't all being like how it used to be. Also, if you wanted to play a trap deck, consider playing Eldritch or Labyrinth for right now. Those are stronger strategies for going first and going second. And now the strategy that you guys have been waiting for, Vanquish Souls. After testing this deck, I think this is a deck that can compete. Vanquish Soul didn't take up 7 ultra rare spots for no reason. This is a deck that can actually play into a grind. The thing that I like the most about this deck is that it is resilient to a lot of hand traps that people are playing. Ghost Ogre, Imperm, Effect Veiler, well, you can just chain one of your big body Vanquish Soul monsters to dodge them. Also, Vanquish Soul can play a ton of hand traps without disrupting the strategy. It actually can draw an additional time, kind of like Code Talkers every turn through Heavy Borger. My guy, basically what I'm saying is Heavy Borger is a heavy Borger. It's there gaining advantage when you don't even notice it. Also, looking at the potential for this deck, it is sky high, my friend. This deck is bound to get more support in the future to make it dangerous. So even if it doesn't do anything right now, I think that there's tons of potential in the future. And that's all that I have for what I think are the best decks post Wild Survivors. If you guys enjoyed the content, you already know what to do. Go ahead and check out these videos. As always, big dog, I hope you're having a phenomenal day, and I'll catch you on the next one.